Off my phone. Oh, thank you, Shelby, or whoever did that. Good morning, everybody. Yes, we're recording this so that we can put it onto our website and you'll have access to it later on. I am going to get started by putting in the chat the link to our slides that our Google Doc presentation. And okay, so welcome to Leveraging Artificial Intelligence in Teaching and Learning for Positive Brain Development. Tonight, or this morning, I want to welcome Dana Mason, Jennifer Pax, myself, and Christopher Schomburg. We have been working on the Professional Pathways Title V grant, doing faculty development this year. And we're very lucky to have the funding to allow you all to get compensated. And we are going to get started. So first, we want to do a little poll. Shelby, can you release that poll for everyone? Let me stop sharing for a minute. Here we go. Uh, we're going to focus a little bit on our emotional responses to AI and how that might drive some of the things that we do. We've got about half of you that have participated. How are you all feeling about AI? I know that we have a biased group here because you've chosen to spend your morning on a workshop on AI, but it'll be interesting to see how you all feel.
I believe it's going to change the nature of the way we teach 100%. And I think it's going to be good. The biggest problem that I have is that uh, most students, they've been taught that it's cheating. And even though I have a policy and I recommend it and believe me, in special ed, it's very useful, for looking up legal things and all. It used to take forever to find something,
Yeah.
and you can use AI. But I don't think a lot of them believe me. For those who do, are showing, I think, really good results.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that and what and how they can make a choice or not and how they might use it. Shelby, can you share the results of the poll? Let's end it and oh, I can do it. Sorry. Forgot that I'm the co-host. So here are our results. Um, most of you are excited, a little bit of frustration, a little anxiety, ambivalence, and anger. And no one is relieved. That's interesting. No confusion right now, but that's our group. So let me stop sharing and get back to, did I share that right? Did you all get to see those results? Yeah, okay. Just want to make sure I did that right. All right, let's get back to business. I want to hone in on the major idea of our workshop today, and that is that artificial intelligence is actively rewiring human neural pathways. So we're going to look a little bit at some cognitive science. The cognitive impact of AI is dictated by the depth of human engagement. So we've sort of got this villain, if you're imagining this as a good story, we've got this villain, which is the passive reliance on AI that reduces brain engagement, erodes critical thinking, and triggers long-term dependency loops. We're going to get into that in a little bit more depth. And the hero, which is active co-creation, that sustains neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity means our brain's ability to change and learn and grow. So, what all of us are engaged in is neuroplasticity, is trying to change the neuronal connections of our students' brains. And it accelerates personalized learning, this co-creation, and it can drive medical breakthroughs. For example, um, many of you might know that mammograms right now are being read by AI, and in addition to a human. Again, there's that co-creation, and they're finding much much better results that way. We're going to share some interesting research that has been done on AI and the brain. This was a study done at MIT's Media Lab, and they looked at the neural and behavioral consequences of large language model assisted essay writing. Participants were split into three groups, one using ChatGPT, one using search engines, and one working from memory alone. Across multiple sessions, they had EEG headsets measuring the brain activity throughout the research, and results showed significant differences in brain connectivity. What we'd expect, right? The brain-only group had the strongest, most distributed neural networks. The search engine group had some moderate engagement. It was sort of in the middle. And the large language model, the AI users, displayed the weakest connectivity. The memory toll of offloading in this instance also outlasts the task itself. 83% of the students using ChatGPT could not recall the key points in their own essays. I don't think this surprises anyone, right? 0% of the students could accurately quote their own submitted work because it wasn't really their work. And the point here is that cognitive decline continues post-use. Participants exhibited sluggish brain activity long after closing the AI tool. Um,
Sorry.
so yeah, go ahead. Dana, you want to?
Yeah, sure. So a key concern is now emerging where we're finding cognitive offloading based on research on the use of AI and process referred to as cognitive offloading. So when people are using technology with memory and problem-solving tasks instead of engaging with these types of activities or tasks themselves, they're starting to see atrophy in certain areas that are important, like memory and problem solving. So we saw this with the Google effect where people were not retaining information as much when they could easily just go quick look up facts and things that they needed. So now we're finding it's a little different now with AI. It's now affecting not just the memory, but our problem solving and other types of deep analysis and deep thinking, as opposed to just going through it as day-to-day tasks. So there was a study done in 2025, and there were 666 participants from various age groups around the with negative correlation between frequent AI tool use and critical thinking abilities that were mediated by increased cognitive offloading. So they found that young participants had a higher dependence on AI and lower critical thinking scores than the older people who were raised without AI as they were developing these skills. So it's a fascinating thing, and it kind of makes sense. I don't think that that's a surprising thing if you've had a chance to grow up with it and learn with it. It's a skill that you have and you've developed as opposed to what some of the newer generation will be experiencing. So if we go to the next slide, um, when we're talking about neuroplasticity, I look at it as a use it or lose it sort of situation. In January 2026, a paper was published in NPJ, Artificial Intelligence. Nature argues that neuroplasticity is the brain's way to form new connections through life, and it's directly shaped by how people interact with AI. So passive, uncritical reliance on AI may weaken this activity-dependent brain plasticity and erode cognition, whereas active co-creation with AI can sustain it or over-enhance it. So that friction path, if you see in the graphic, is necessary. We've got to go over the hurdles. I don't want to say it's got to hurt a little, but you're going to feel it a little as you go. And that's what makes those neural pathways stronger over time. The shortcut path, it looks easier, but it's smoother and more boring. And if it's super easy, it's very hard for that to stick over time because of the way the brain development is working.
It's a little bit like going to the gym analogy.
Exactly.
If you're not lifting weights that are hard enough, heavy enough, you're not going to gain anything.
For
So
sure.
it's sort of the same way. It's a little bit like hooking up a machine to lift weights for you. You're not going to get any stronger, right?
No pain, no gain, right?
No pain, no gain.
So, if we look at the next slide, critical thinking is migrating from an executive action to a passive stewardship. So, we're finding that there are three specific ways we're calling shifting from information gathering to information verification, application shifting from problem solving to AI response integration, and then analysis evaluation shifting from task execution to task stewardship. The emerging consensus is that how you use AI matters enormously. Heavy reliance on AI for tasks that require deep thinking appears to reduce brain engagement, and that may cause long-lasting cognitive effects, while AI is a collaborative tool is a little different if you use it that way. Where the human remains actively engaged, this seems a little less harmful and potentially beneficial because it'll enhance what you're working with. It allows you to still have those that no pain, no gain kind of thing. You get to have that friction that you need cognitively to build those neural pathways. It seems less harmful and potentially beneficial in the sense that this is a fast developing field. We may be able to partner with it differently as opposed to fully rely on it and have that cognitive offload affect us in a negative way.
Sorry, Dana, can you explain what you mean by AI response integration in the application um, part?
Oh, AI response integration, sure. So with when we're having different types of I think what that means is I think when we're coming into AI, it's there are different ways that we're going to be using it and utilizing it in our space. And then as we do that, our brain is going to react with it differently, in especially with how we are using our problem solving and our cognitive ability. So it's more of a cognitive offload if we're using it to take care of different types of things for us and to completely do different tasks instead of us partnering with it in a different sort of way. So I kind of look at it this way. A lot of training that I've been to, people are saying, don't use it as a Google. It's not a Google. We have search engines for that, but we can use it as a means of expanding upon our own work, expanding upon our problem solving, allowing us to partner with it differently so that it can be helpful, but it doesn't fully take over the work that we're doing. And we still kind of, it's not a full cognitive offload, if that helps a
And
little.
we're gonna come back to this and give a lot
Sure.
more examples. And we're gonna use it, and we're gonna show you an AI scale that will help you kind of see where you are within that response integration.
Yeah, that'll
Okay,
be better
thank
for
you.
later.
Chris is going to talk now about some of the psychological aspects of the brain and AI.
Yeah, it's my distinct pleasure to talk about anxiety in this year of 2026. Um, I blurted out last time and someone followed up with me, so I'm going to blurt it out again. If you're not anxious nowadays, you're really not paying attention. I feel we have to sort of cultivate an equanimity where we can hold excitement, anxiety, hope, all at the same time. But I like to start off too with there's a quote by Rebecca Solnit about AI that kind of explains why it's so anxiety producing. She calls AI or ChatGPT a solution in search of a problem and a problem masked as a solution, where we didn't really ask for this, and we're adult professionals. But I could imagine, well, I have two college-age student children. If you're in college and all of a sudden this thing pops into your lap, um, that's a game changer for your current academics and your future job and career prospects, there's gonna be some anxiety. And there's one specific paradox that I'd like to talk about. Um, 66% of students, this is from a 2025 US Student Wellbeing Survey. They found that 66% of students report anxiety about using AI. And there's a whole slew of things they're anxious about. Um, number one, I feel according to the thing is, I'll summarize as FOMO, fear of missing out, right? So if I don't use it, but everyone else is using it, I'm going to be at the bottom of the curve. I'm going to miss out. My professor's going to think I'm stupid. If I do use it, here's anxiety. I'm missing skills. What if I get accused of plagiarism? How could I, it's not my voice. I don't write like this. I don't talk like this. I don't think like this. So there's this paradox. And on the converse, though, there are ways for AI to be used that could alleviate this. So Maybe go to the next slide. Thanks. Let me just cue my notes. One thing I like to think about, there's a cognitive psychologist I follow a lot, Ellen Langer. She has a really good definition of mindfulness. Let me just give it to you right here. It's not the sort of mindfulness of exactly of sort of Zen or meditation, but she determines mindfulness as the process of actively noticing new things. Unlike meditation, Ellen Langer's mindfulness is a cognitive state of being engaged in the present, creating new categories, and navigating with multiple perspectives. So I think she's an easy read. She's got a bunch of books, and she's come up with some really innovative stuff over the last 30 years. But I think if we sort of use this type of mindfulness, it could be pretty helpful. Here's this one. I'm a little ahead of myself. Here's the external pressure pipeline of how it's sort of AI dependency sort of compounds the existing stressors, right? So what I mentioned before, the sort of FOMO of not use, fear of missing out, of not using it, of the pressures of using it. But students already have, undergraduates have heavy workloads where, hey, AI would be tempted. Financial pressures, career pressures that AI has generated. Graduate students have time pressures, job pressures. So the literature sort of says that AI is really sort of exacerbating these academic pressures that people have. And then again, if once you sort of become, I don't throw around addiction metaphors easily, but there does become a feedback loop of, I'm using AI, I'm getting weaker in these things, I'm getting more dependent, I'm not thinking originally, and what are the long-term consequences to this? So I think, if we make it more active, we're going to focus on this later, we become, we use it as a tool and we see ourselves as a producer, but it's not simple, right? Because I think the kind of questions we're used to asking and uses we're used to doing are geared for a simpler, technology. We're sort of more search engine mindset. It's like we're horse and buggy mindset, and now someone's just introduced a Porsche to us. So what new things can we do? What old things don't we have to do? And how do we get this new car on the interstate highway system?
Jennifer, you want to talk a little bit more? What do we do about all this?
Sure. Yeah, no, sure. What do we do? But I do want to kind of just unpack this term like cognitive hygiene, right? So we're talking about like, how are we not letting our brain engrams not develop, right? And how are we trying to avoid like the deterioration of the mind, right? Like, what are the most amazing, right? We've got a lot of amazing things going on in our body, right? But the brain's pretty incredible, right? So we're hoping so far we've like brought the attention to like all of you, like, right? It AI is so connected to how our brain is developing, right? We are moving into this space of like we need to up our game, right? In 2026, we need to be thinking that teaching and learning, right, needs to be more intentional, right, strategic and thoughtful than ever, right? And so as a university, right, as teachers, as learners, right, we're all in this together. And the idea that we're just policing students, right, that like AI is some enemy, that we're policing students, like citation, 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 right? That all like really needs to be just put aside, right? The likelihood that like, okay, a student's used AI and they're wrong, right? And we're going to have a punitive response to that is like ancient history, and like the courts, like some of the highest courts in the country, right, have validated that. And so we need to really look at our role across disciplines, right? That we are co-creators with AI, we're co-learners with AI, we're co-teachers with AI, right? We need to think about results we get from AI and not necessarily accept them as truth, and have our students embrace that idea as well. We want to think of ourselves as curators, right? Actively integrating with AI, right? Being very intentional, right? And having the ultimate responsibility over the ownership, right? And not quite yet. We're not going to do the big reveal yet, but something about this presentation that Muriel will share shortly. And so we enter the next slide, Muriel.
Sure.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, so so it's we have multiple levels that we need to be working at, right? Like at the student level, at the teaching level, at the institutional level, right? Even at the societal level, right? With like our research findings. To really think about bringing our policies related to AI down to the course level, right? And we're not even talking about like all or nothing kind of policies, right? We're talking about even thinking about every assignment intentionally, right? Thinking about your own creation of the assignment intentionally with AI, right? And so kind of shifting learners into recognizing, right, that they have to have an intentional relationship with AI. Look at assignment instructions and what and in the next slide, we're going to talk about like these different levels of use of AI. And so in this idea of like this dependency loop, right? Like we are not looking for learners, teachers, right, and society to be dependent on what AI does for us, right? We want to think like at the end of the day, right, we're the boss on what's happening with it, right? Um, you know, Collaborative, right? We want to be collaborative bosses, right? But the final say is with the user. So if we can go to the next slide, right? Because this is really where we shift into the like what are we doing with this, right? For learners, for teachers, for at the institutional level and beyond. This is an AI assessment scale, right? And I think Muriel presented this to me maybe like a year and a half ago or so. It's been a while, right? I love this tool. It has opened up dialogue with students to recognize that like every assignment we approach, right, has a different relationship with AI, right? And so it has made it less scary for students to realize like we have this open discussion, right? There are some things that we're doing with no AI, right, pursuant to this scale, right, that are very much based in like simulation, based in reflection. And then there's like AI collaborative use, right, that like might be more with students creating projects from AI, right? Or planning, right? Okay, students, you're going to plan to generate your ideas and then let's come back and critically evaluate those ideas, right? We're all going to be talking about like more specific assignments, right? But this is I think all of us at this point actually include the AI assessment scale in our syllabi or make it a unit at the beginning of courses, right? To have this open relationship. And I will say it's been a profound response from the learner level to recognize the links that we've made in class between growth mindset, brain development, and the AI scale and the why. And it becomes now more about like them not wanting to cheat themselves, right? Shifting has been incredible by having these open dialogues. So I'll stop there because now we're kind of in this space where we're all going to be sharing some different examples from our
Dana,
classes.
do you want to, this is another version of the AI scale with exemplars. Dana, do you want to explain this to the group?
Sure, sure. So what I like about just to piggyback on what Jennifer was saying, I love the AI assessment scale as well. I think it's a great way of giving guidelines and helping provide that structure for students. Sometimes there are things because we want to honor the idea of cognitive offloading and the idea of there are some skills that we're always going to have to just build. Just like in the studies I was referring to earlier too, there people who came to AI later in life had time to build their critical thinking skills and other things like that, that when they use AI, it's not replacing. So students that are growing up with it are in a different space. We often have students in our classes that have the same kind of situation. So no AI is great. There's just that. don't use it. But these are some examples, as you can see, like AI assisted would be the second level. The three is the collaborative level. And this helps with just some different examples to kind of, I tried to make a lot of these where they were related to different writing examples and some projects that we would have, so it would be a little more widespread and accessible to everybody's domains. But these types of things can really help. So understanding what it looks like to use AI versus yes or no. We were talking about it just before this meeting. No AI being level 1, level 5 generated full AI. What does that really look like, and what are the different levels in between? By assigning this with different assignments that you have, it helps give your students that sort of guidelines and that structure that they need. I noticed that when I say no AI earlier on, and then other ones I'm saying, well, we're going to use a level 3. I want you to collaborate with AI to polish off some of your ideas, or level 2, where we're refining some of our writing and making sure that grammar, spelling, things like that, citation formatting, these are corrected within your work. Students are sticking to that, or they're respecting it more because they're understanding when it's more ethical to use it or when it's acceptable. They might not be able to make those discerning choices just yet because it's a little bit of the Wild West. Everyone's just out there still testing with it. So if we're giving them these step-by-step instructions for different levels, it helps. The two that I find hardest to differentiate between, and that's because of what maybe we're teaching, is level 4 and level 5. And understanding that sometimes there's different examples for each of those that differ from, spelling correction and things of a level 2, or generating an outline that you could work from for sort of level 3. But level 4 is collaborative high, and is going to be, something, an example could be is using AI for co-writing, generating ideas, refining arguments, and submitting, let's say, a final brief for a process report reflecting on how AI shaped those ideas. That would be a great way of somebody showing how to assess metacognition, critical thinking, and getting students to have ethical use in AI for a creative partner. And then AI full is a little more explained here, where you could use an AI model to generate an essay report on a topic for, let's say, the future of sustainability. And you can have students evaluate the AI generated output for accuracy, bias, and coherence, and then write 1,000-word critical commentary analyzing those strengths and weaknesses of the AI support, and suggest improvements upon the AI's output. And that helps a lot too, because it keeps that cognitive load focused. Students are now analyzing and assessing AI for its efficacy and how that works, taking what was good and kind of omitting certain things or calling out what didn't work as much. This will help us identify bias and other types of things that don't necessarily work when AI is maybe hallucinating or not giving us as accurate of a response.
Thanks, Dana. I wanted to chime in here a little bit to
Please.
let you know that we developed this presentation using AI. And I'm looking at the scale and I'm trying to think we're probably between a 3 and a 4. So what I did is I started out by going to Claude, and I asked Claude to identify scholarly research on cognition and AI. And they provided a variety of different scholarly sources. I vetted all of those sources. I went to the original sources, looked through them, decided, yeah, this is a good group of scholarly research. Then I took that body of scholarly research and I put it into Copilot,
Mm.
Claude, and Notebook LM, and asked it to generate a slide presentation for a faculty workshop. And Copilot, that was the everyday one that comes with Windows, not a paid version. The everyday version of Copilot completely failed and could not even generate the slides for me. It kept saying, here's the slide presentation, and it would give me a link that was not a link. It just literally could not do it for me. Claude gave me a very, very basic presentation, a PowerPoint slide presentation that was, serviceable, but kind of basic and a little uninspiring. And you can see the slides that we use are really quite over the top with the graphic design that came from Notebook LM. So the slides we're using right now actually came from Notebook LM. It's tricky because sometimes they're right on, sometimes they're a little funky, like all of AI, right? It's not quite perfect yet. Maybe it never will be. But we then took those slides and really like digested them and said, okay, what order do we want them? What do we want to talk about? How are we relating this to our particular audience? So we certainly didn't use it exactly as we got it from Notebook LM. Uh, so that's why I say it's between maybe a 3 and a 4. It generated the initial outline and summarized the sources for us that we then used to kind of analyze and synthesize a little bit more what we wanted to share here. So I am going to, and our, oh, here's another slide about the different kinds of applications in the classroom. Jennifer, did you want to talk about this? Do you want me to do it or?
You can go ahead. I'm going to chime in after.
Again, we took our knowledge of AI, the AI scale, and what we've been doing, and these are sort of two different categories. We can apply it using instructional design, so we want to focus on the process over the product. I think that's the big thing that comes out of AI that maybe is a good thing, is that it's not so much did you write the essay well, is it a good formed essay? But what did you learn in writing the essay or, preparing for an exam or whatever it might be? So this pushes us towards low stakes assignments that help build confidence through frequent low pressure practice. Remember Chris's part about the anxiety and how anxiety pushes students to use AI in inappropriate ways often. So we want to take away some of the anxiety. So having more assignments that are smaller and low stakes, meaning they might be just a quiz grade, or maybe they're not graded at all. Some authentic engagement requiring personal reflection and original thought. In my human development class, I have students reflect on their own lives and apply the theories that we're learning to their own lives. And while they might be using AI to clean up their writing, which actually makes my job a little easier because they're easier to read, they are 100% authentic because I'm telling you the stories they tell me nobody could make up. And then scaffolded tasks where we can break assignments into manageable steps. I know, Chris, you do that a lot where you have them handed in at various points in the process of creating the project, whatever it might be, an essay or a presentation or something like that. Critique of resources and encourage active evaluation of AI. So try this out in AI and then critique. How good was it? Were the references good or not? Because that will force them to go and check every reference, right? And then there's kind of this principles and culture piece of it. We want a human-centered approach. AI supports learning, but does not replace your role as the learner. So I like the way Jennifer was talking about being very transparent with our students. They paid a lot of money and they are spending a lot of time getting a degree. What do they want to get out of this degree? It's no longer, it's shifted us from talking about, what the outcome is. Again, it's the same thing about process over product. And what have you learned along the journey? It's easier for those of us in professional programs because we're constantly talking about how are you going to use this in your job. But hopefully all of us, no matter what we're teaching, can see the applications for further life. And maybe it's not a job, maybe I happen to absolutely believe in Gen Ed with all of my heart and soul. I remember when I was a young adult taking a trip to Europe and going to visit every cathedral, because I had taken this amazing course in medieval art, and we learned all about how they constructed Gothic cathedrals and why they are the way they are. And that was such a powerful experience for me that had nothing to do with my major. So it's not just preparing for a job. It's also, I really do believe that what makes American education different is our focus on this liberal learning and general education. Ethical and transparent use, maintaining clarity and open dialogue around the use of AI tools. I recently did an assignment in my sociology of education class asking students to analyze student performance data from the New Jersey school report cards and looking at differences by social class, race, ethnicity, gender of two different districts or two different schools. And a lot of them I could tell used AI because they were flat out wrong. New Jersey's funding of schools is very different than school funding in the rest of the United States. So AI is drawing on very general knowledge that it has, knowledge in quotes. It's making predictions based on this general knowledge that just doesn't work for this. So that I actually meet with that class later on this afternoon, and I'm going to talk about that and have an honest conversation with them about why some of their analyses were not good and it didn't work for that. Being very transparent, what can it do? What can it not do? Learning and literacy with AI, developing core cognitive skills through results, responses, and responsibility. Again, focusing our students on what role their brain is playing and their learning, and then provide a community of care. We need a supportive learning environment that promotes overall growth. I love that Jennifer brought up the growth mindset. If we combine this with growth mindset, this is not about getting it right, getting the answers right on the exam. This is about how have I changed as a learner? How have I changed as a professional? How have I grown? And we need, I want to go back to that slide about anxiety. You know what? I'm going to go back there for a minute so that we can look at this anxiety slide, this paradox about how our anxiety will drive the use of AI that might not be in our students' best interest. So we're really looking at the whole person as a learner in this AI scale, the assessment scale. So I'm going to stop sharing right now. It's 10:38. We've got about 20 minutes or so. I'm going to first throw it out to my team to share some maybe other examples of how you're using AI and what you think are effective ways. And then we'd love to hear from the rest of all of you, a kind of hive mentality, and see what we can learn from each other.
Yeah, Muriel, thanks. That was great. And you're very provocative, your last part. One thing that helped me out a lot, this was about 2 years ago. I was talking to a bunch of teachers. They were very anxious about not doing their job, about catching plagiarism, and I got to thinking that this is such a major shift in our society, culture, environment. So important, and it's not a temporary or short-term thing now. I feel my advice to myself and to others is to have a little grace, a little understanding. Let's play with this a little bit. Let's not be we don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to catch every plagiarist. Let's be sort of kind to each other and see where it goes. Like if you get a new technology, one of the best things to do is play with it for a little bit, right? Have a spirit of excitement, enthusiasm, and trial and error. So I think we're still in a trial and error phase. And I think if students are making errors and trying things, and if we're making errors and trying things, that's the best long-term, that's a good long-term strategy. I don't know if it's the best.
And
Um,
I want to just jump in here real quick because another one of the strategies that we have talked about in other workshops is letting students revise work.
yeah.
So these students in my sociology of education class, we're going to have the discussion this afternoon, and then I'm going to ask them to redo it and see what that feels like, comparing those different processes. It's not a I gotcha. It's a let's learn from this and see how we can do this better.
Yeah, and in my I have an AI policy in my classes, and one of them is to have an explanation or disclaimer if you used AI. And I don't expect everyone to be 100% honest with me on it, but at least I think it's part of the conversation. If I see something a little, this has happened over the semester, that's a little more egregious, I'm like, well, you were supposed to generate the idea yourself, or if you use AI, get 5 ideas and pick one. So it's a step to sort of acknowledge it's acceptable, it's usable, but there are guidelines and to get that conversation going. So I think that's been really helpful to me over the last, at least the last 6 or 7 months since I started doing it.
Dana, Jennifer, you want to jump in or?
Yeah. So we've done some simple things with like Copilot in putting inputs in and generating like images, right? Which looked beautiful. And they're shorter activities for them. Outlining, right? Like I think picking topics is you know, for research policy related courses, can be difficult, right? And so using different AI tools. Copilot is where I've been kind of spending a lot of time. Like I'm not like Chris that has like 25 different tools going on at the same time, but um, in creating outlines to like help kind of organize and then like evaluate, does that look like a topic you want to like dig deeper into? So I would say, I'm certainly at an infancy stage in terms of like, you know, all the tools out there. But but what I'm doing with like approaching every class now is like thinking about every assignment, right? Like what is the relationship to AI? What is the relationship to the brain? What am I trying to get the students to accomplish? And this, in a couple weeks, I'll be meeting with like Muriel and a couple other colleagues, and we're going to be looking at the social work program, right? Like we've got a lot of good assignments, but like in the last 5 years since we've developed that program, it's like, wow, everything's changing every day, right? So even collectively beyond one class, how does this program, right, really maximize like the brain development, learning, learners, tools, right? And just like, have more like high impact learning and meaningful practices, right? Like, just even beyond their internships and other things that are already existing. So I think as a teacher, like this, the last like 2 years of my life have been a game changer, right? Like the idea of like reading and writing, in the age of AI, right? It's not, there's so much more than that. Um,
And, I also want to validate all your feelings. Somebody had the guts to say that they were angry about AI. Sometimes I'm angry about AI. Sometimes I just want to scream because it has taken away the type of teaching that I was good at and that I was comfortable with. And now I have to learn all of this new. It's like learning how to be a faculty member all over again. So there is a part of me that is angry and frustrated. There's a part of me that's also excited. I got to share one other activity that I've done that's kind of cool. I have my students learning sociological theories, and I want them to be able to apply them. So I have them use AI to teach them. So I help them craft the prompt that these are the 5 theories I want to learn about, act as my tutor, and provide some activities and exercises that I can do to learn these theories better. And then I have them, the assignment is actually to report on what they thought about the AI. Was it helpful? Did it work? And obviously they're learning about the theories as part of this evaluation of using AI in that way.
If I could kind of piggyback off that, Muriel, I think that's a great point, and I love that you led with the people who are vulnerable enough to share that they're angry about it. And I think that that's also valid. Um, when we're looking at AI and how it's disrupted what we're doing, and I think someone earlier had said it's going to change the way we teach. We're looking at AI. If we're focusing on it in academia as just a plagiarism issue, it's not really as much a plagiarism issue among student integrity as it is with our instructional design issue. If you think about it that way, we can kind of take the responsibility of now that we have this tool, we found another song. What are we going to sing? And we have to come up with a new way, I think, of embracing that and adjusting what what we've been doing, so that we can show students more of an ethical path forward, give them different types of assignments. For example, we're in College of Ed for Ed Tech, and one of the courses we have that I've been teaching is with the School Library Media Specialist program. And in the syllabi for years has always been, all right, create a lesson plan, show us what you do and contour it around this type of procured media and this and that. And it's a great lesson. But now what's happening in the field is most teachers are using AI to create their lesson plans. Lesson plans are just the very basic outline of what's actually going to happen, making sure you have differentiation and modifications and all the day to day. And here's what our activities are. It's not your lecture. It's not all the big things not all of the activities. So teachers are they're hitting a button and they're modifying it as they go, copy, paste. If we don't finish it, we're going to push that forward and add to it. So it's almost like it's taking a great administrative task in the real world off of their shoulders. But students still have to learn why we create those, what we're doing with them. So what I did was I added an AI component of it, AI assessment scale. I showed them that or expressed that I wanted them to use a higher level AI up to like level 4 or 5. When I said, how are we going to do this? So I expected them to come up with their outline. I told them to use AI for it, but then I wanted them to properly modify it. And then after they were done creating it, I had them write a page on just explain to me what you did, what AI provided, and did what AI originally provide you, was that fully sufficient where you could have just sign, seal, deliver, put that out for your class? Would it have hit everything? And then the responses were great because they were thoughtful about the use of how AI was being used in the classroom. And that was more of what I wanted. I wanted them to be able to show me that they're discerning on how they're using this. You can, once you get into the field, it's not going to be like, great, I get to just use AI and, I'm not going to worry about that. But it's thinking about how. If we don't know how to differentiate, our students are going to be at a disadvantage. And that was a really large component I felt in the discussion points. And so many people said, if I just copy and pasted this, it was a great outline, but it really needed that human touch. And I love that they were coming up with that. Another thing too with differentiation, I'm a big fan of Notebook LM. I know we've talked about that in the past, but being that it's a closed thing where you can bring in all of your materials, it's not open where you're putting all of the AI out there, all of the personal materials and research that you have, or relying on maybe not so great reliable, hallucinated materials that AI could be providing you. You put your own materials in, and it'll come up with a whole bunch of different ways to understand it. And I love this for differentiating for our students because some people learn in different ways. You can have it produce a slideshow, a podcast, if you're more of an auditory person where you want to hear it or you want to read about it and then hear it. You can layer the information. It'll create all different ways of understanding that same material from what you've put into it. And it really does help in a lot of ways. So I've been trying to work with some of my students using that tool for their own sort of understanding, study guides. There have been times too for myself. I know that I've gotten there will be passages that might be slightly out of my comfort zone because it's not really my domain. I still have to understand them. We still have to use them in our research. So I'll copy and paste a small section of it. Okay, explain this to me like I'm in fifth grade. And it brings the reading level down for me where then it sort of summarizes it in a different way. And isn't that what Daily News is on, like that fifth, sixth grade level? So it's like what a lot of people in general are reading at. If there's really complex things, you can use it to help synthesize something down and then cross-reference it to make sure it's accurate. But these are ways I've been trying to help my students so that if they get stuck, they're not disenfranchised. Like, this is above me. This isn't really hitting my applicable mark.
Are any of you doing assignments that you'd like to share with the group that you think have been particularly effective in using AI?
Yes, I have Susan Pfeiffer at Leadership. I agree with everything, and I would love I'm really glad that you had the AI evaluation tool or rubric or where you are, because I realized I was doing it anyway, but it would have been good to have that thing to have students know exactly where we were. I put a whole AI paragraph in my course because I think students should use it for some of them if they need it, and we're not going to get around that. So what I do in my assignments is and at Leadership, we have to work with the PESO standards. And so they have to learn them. And so what we do is I have them pick one standard that they're going to do, look for 3 AI sources to come up with for them to look to see what they say, have them evaluate those sources, critique the AI reference sources, go to those actually clicks on, especially if we use ChatGPT, go and see if they're legitimate. Are they coming from the people who generate the PESO standards? Then as for the reflection piece, I'm asking them, like, what did they learn? They have to come up with examples of each AI standard. Did the AI produce examples for them? And are those examples realistic in their school? So I kind of have been embracing, because I know they're going to use it for that. I also have them use it for making their outlines, generating ideas for the research course that I teach. So I've been using it for over the last year. I was really one of those people who was very anxious, worried that we're going to get all of this plagiarism and things like that. But I finally figured out how to use it for the process, not for the outcome. And I think that was very, very important that all of you mentioned that. It's about the process that they use. Yes, I don't think, I could see that some of them generated their presentations from using some of the AI presentation software. That's fine. The outcome is, is a great presentation, but checking the resources, is finding out what ideas they have to do. They have to link them to the standards, link them to academic peer research. Those are the things that I'm looking for. So again, I just want to thank all of you for this presentation and thank you for sharing all this good information. And now I can kind of put it in perspective. I'm definitely going to put that
Yeah,
that
it's nice to
evaluation
have
tool up there.
Yeah, it's nice to have that framework to kind of think about the different possible ways that we're using it. I have I have started using presentations more than I have in the past for two reasons. One, because it's a way of ensuring some level of synthesis of the material. Even if they've gotten their information from AI, they still have to process it enough to at least explain it to the class. And secondly, because I also think a lot about the skills that our students will need in the workplace, no matter where they are. And my particular student body tends to not do very well with presentations. I'll have a few that, can do amazing. I'll have a few that are so anxious, they are literally shaking when they get up to do their presentation, and a lot in the middle that are, just okay. So I also think about the human element, right? That's the way I'm combining the human element with sort of the technology tool as well. Use this tool because that's what I do, right? When I'm preparing for my own class, do I use AI? Absolutely. I have often used, I have a paid version of ChatGPT, and I've often used it to say, give me some active learning activities on this topic that I could use in a 2-hour class. And then I look at them, and some of them are garbage, but some of them are like, oh, I didn't think about that. That's a good idea. Um, and then I present it to my students. So I'm still doing that cognitive that cognitive load that cognitive work, let's say. I'm still lifting those weights. It's not it's more like I have the trainer by my side helping me lift the weights. Anyone else have other examples that they've used?
Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
Hi, how you doing? Muriel, it's actually what you just said there is kind of how I utilize it. In my courses, somewhere or the other, we do a paper and then a presentation of some aspect of that paper, and it gives me the opportunity. I know they use, to be honest with you, I probably need to implement guidelines with AI because it's such a new thing. So in my next syllabus, I will be figuring out how I want to, but I know they use it. You could tell some of the research, which I'm okay with because again, you have to verify that and stuff. So I usually take out of their papers a presentation, which, like Muriel just said, allows me to make sure they understand the information that I want them to absorb. I kind of try to combine my classes like a undergrad and a grad, where a lot of it's research, a lot of it's in class stuff. But you hit it on the head. For me, at least, they could use the AI for research, but I'm able to ask them questions and get a dialogue when they do their presentations to make sure that they understand that information. So yeah, to me, it's kind of going from like an encyclopedia to Google, from Google to AI. To me, it's just another step of, they're going to use it. I mean, first time I ever used it was probably 3 weeks ago, and I had to ask my high school kids how to do it because they said it's
That's
brand new to
interesting.
me. I mean, I don't use it. I teach intelligence, so I always have that suspicion of it a little bit too.
Yeah,
which
right.
is good. I think it's good.
Right, of course it is. Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's kind of, it's funny, and I've always taught my classes that way. So it's kind of like, well, it's always been a safeguard for, okay, you can get your information however you want to research it, but I'm going to be able to test you on it because
And maybe you can share with them some of the research on the brain science and the cognitive offloading and how we still have to keep ourselves able to grow and learn. So yeah, the AI scale might be very helpful for you to share with your students.
Yeah, and I tell them exactly what you just said. I'm preparing you for the work world.
Yeah.
not just the academic world, but the work world. So I'm retired law enforcement. I teach in the professional security studies. I make them do presentations because that's what we do. That's how we
That's
train.
right.
I make them write papers because you have to write reports. I mean,
That's
I'm
right.
sometimes I only make them write a 5-page paper, and they're like, "Oh, great!" I said, "It's hard to get a lot of information in a 5-page paper. I need you to get the information in there. You got to learn how to write a certain way to prepare them for that." And I think a lot of that takes some of the, if you want to call it cheating, out of AI. That they have to be able to balance all of this stuff. So that's just what I do. And it's funny because I've always taught like that. And I think it does safeguard a lot of the AI stuff. So just something else.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Thanks for sharing.
Kat, you wanted to share a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm in the biology department, and for my intro bio, this is their first semester bio class. They have a writing assignment that they work on in pieces over the course of the semester, and part of that is finding primary and secondary scientific literature to look at. And so for part of their final assignment, what I've had them do last semester and this semester is take their review article, have an AI summarize it, and then tell me what's hallucinated or what is incorrectly summarized or what's missing, like big picture things that are missing from their review paper. And I have them think about it a little bit about like, okay, what are the disadvantages of not reading the paper myself? What does using AI save me versus what does it cost? And so that's sort of how the main way that I've been implementing it in my classes is just for that one assignment.
That's a great idea. I really like that a lot because it gets at that critical thinking, right? That's that cognitive load, that critical thinking load. You know what I'm thinking, Chris? I'm talking to Chris because he's always my technology solution. What we need, especially as we transition into our new jobs next fall, is some repository where we can collect examples of assignments at all of these different levels. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, that'd be a great idea.
And we can just ask people to share them with us and then have a central, almost like a central database where we could click on and say, oh, I need an idea. Let me look at what Kat's doing in biology. I think that would be super helpful to me, at least, to get ideas. So that might be next.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
next
let's think about it. Let's figure it out. That's good.
Christina, did you want to
I
jump
was
in here?
actually gonna ask if you guys maybe have like that would be a good idea for like what to put in a syllabi or like ideas of
Yes.
the language that you use for your syllabi
Yes.
because with the whole AI thing, it's there. Students are using it, staff and faculty are using it. Let's not lie there. Like we know, people are using it.
Of course.
Right. But some of the assignments you can easily kind of like adapt them to that, scale.
Yes.
And it's, not realizing that we kind of are doing it, but we are not doing not
So
officially doing it. So.
Exactly. Our advice is to have in your syllabus overall, we're going to use AI in appropriate ways. And we all would agree to put in something about growth mindset because our goal here is for you to grow and change as a learner. And then our advice is that for every single assignment you give, you are going to go back to the AI scale and tell them where they are on that scale and maybe why. I often will tell my students, this is an assignment where there's no right answer and I want to hear your voice. Don't be worried about your grammar and spelling. I just want to hear what your thoughts are. So I'm going to insist on absolutely no AI. Other times, as I've mentioned, I'm going to have them more in the middle. But I have the AI used for every single assignment in my classes now. So that's what we'd recommend. It is 11 o'clock. We are out of time. So we're going to stop here. But if you want to hang out and chat with us, that would be great. And hopefully you'll hear more from us in the future. We're going to keep our fingers crossed. Thank you all so much for attending. Shelby Blair, who's on the call right now, is our administrative assistant on the grant and will be making sure that you all get compensated. So thank you. Have a great week.
Bye.
Thank you.